Coming up on today's Locked On Senators. How about an actual hockey game? The Sens' 5-day break is over. They're hosting the Los Angeles Kings tonight at the CTC.
And now that Pierre Dorion is no longer with the Ottawa Senators, who could be some potential replacements?
We'll discuss all that and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 908 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. You can follow Locked On Senators on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where a like, a subscription, and a comment go a long way to helping the show grow. Not only comment with us, but comment with each other. Getting a community spirit in the comments on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. For now, just in the U.S. Today is Thursday, November 2nd, and Pilsy, where were you when you learned yesterday that Pierre Dorion was out as GM?
Well, I mean, we knew about this earlier thanks to the streets and the conduit of the streets in Leems Martian, at Leems Martian, tweeting it out before. But now that the news was finally made official, I was working away on the farm, another farm day up ahead for me. So this was big news that I was not able to jump on the live reaction with you and Martian, but you guys crushed it as always. And this was just classic Sens. Like, there's always something going on, and I think you got a feel for Michael Andlauer, and I think Sens fans were endeared towards his reaction and thought that it was appropriate. Like Ian Mendes saying, Sens fans are wondering why this is coming on your table here and is your fault to deal with when you weren't even part of this. And he's like, yeah, I'm wondering the same thing. A trade that happened years ago and was supposed to be case closed is now not only we're being punished, but we're losing a first-round pick here. Like, this is a big deal. And then you start thinking, well, was he aware of this when he was in the process of buying the team? Apparently, it was downplayed as a non-issue. And again, another great Andlauer line. I don't know about you guys, but a first-round pick is a pretty big issue to me. So there was just a lot of things where it was refreshing for Sens fans to see kind of a guy reacting appropriately in front of the media while also remaining professional, right? Like, he didn't cross any lines, but he made it clear that this is crazy that this is all coming onto my table after I've only owned the team for like 30 days. Like, it's wild that this is what he's having to deal with so soon into his ownership.
Well, and he said it right off the bat, being like, hey, the first few weeks were awesome. This was great. But now,
honeymoon stage.
He's back down to earth. It wasn't all bad for Michael Andlauer. As the reports came out yesterday, he received $250 million for 10% of the Montreal Canadiens, which, I mean, he was almost kind of leveraging himself when he bought the Senators, right? Because that what he paid for the Senators would then in turn increase the value of the other organizations. So I'm sure that he knew what he was getting into, or what he was going to get out of the Montreal Canadiens. So that came across the wire, kind of got lost yesterday in all the events, for lack of a better term. But with Pierre Dorion going out, Michael Andlauer just saying, like, he couldn't think of an appropriate punishment that would hold his employees accountable less than it costing him his job. Like, it was negligible or negligence that caused this to happen. I'm with Andlauer and many Sens fans. Like, the Sens traded him in 2021. Like, there was the summer after the all-Canadian division. They had him in in their organization, Dadonov, for almost a full year and just never knew. It to me, like, I know 2 teams wanted a pound of flesh. Another direct quote from Andlauer. The Ducks would have gotten a 2nd-round pick out of this, conditional 2nd-round pick. And that's where, like, why wasn't it just a 2nd-round pick? But you know what? Bad boys of the NHL now, as Michael Andlauer's kind of, letting everyone know that it was not all right the way that the league handled this and the Shane Pinto situation. I think the Shane Pinto discussion, because this was the first time Andlauer was speaking to media since the punishment came down, 41 games. Probably my favorite part of the whole press conference, really having his players back and knowing that he's going to come back a better person, a better player, and that they're standing behind their guy. So I found that loyalty there on a day where someone's leaving the organization after 17 years from being a director of amateur scouting, assistant general manager, director of player personnel, and then ultimately the general manager. It's good to see that, like, the new regime, it's not like they're trying to, like, get out of everyone and, doing the Vegas method where it's like there's no loyalty. It does feel like that's there. This is just an accountability of you make a certain number of mistakes that are, quote, avoidable. You have to pay the price.
Well, and he also mentions that, look, if this was an organization that had a president of hockey operations, then at least there's another person collaborating with Pierre Dorion on these trades. And just another set of eyes on it. You probably have someone saying, hey, we got to make sure we include this no trade list or no trade clause, right? And I agree with you. I like that Andlauer is backing Pinto, because one of the things from his opening press conference, Ross, that we really kind of magnified was he focused and emphasized on being a player first, employee first type of owner. And that's how he wants the rest of the organization to run. So he's not being here like, well, Pinto messed up and he deserved it. And, like, he's not kicking Pinto while he's down. He's saying, hey, he's getting the help he needs. We support him when he's going to come back, etc. That's what you want. Now, speaking of loyalty and players first, also having DJ Smith's back. Like, DJ Smith, like the Pinto stuff, the Dadonov stuff, that's not on DJ Smith. And from what Andlauer sees and said, the players are still loyal to him. It's not a lack of effort that they're losing these games. So firing DJ Smith just to fire him would not be a player-first decision unless he had an appropriate replacement already ready to go, which I don't think he has. So that was another positive. And look, you might say, okay, well, being loyal, he just let go one of the most loyal people to the Ottawa Senators of the last, 2 decades. Pierre Dorion's been a part of this franchise for 17 years. Well, at a certain point, you got to say the way this team is being run by Pierre Dorion does not reflect how I want things to be run. I'm speaking as Michael Andlauer here. So we can't move forward here. And he still did it in a respectable way.
And Steve Staios. Staios had the direct quote on the coaching staff, but the two of them were up there. Steve Staios, talk about bearing the lead a little bit. Steve Staios will be the interim GM until a new man is appointed, or woman is appointed the position. So with that said, right now, DJ Smith, head coach. I said yesterday on the live stream, he can start looking into dinners in Sweden. He's not being fired before Sweden. No chance, in my opinion. I think you reassess December 1st at this point after a 20-game sample size.
Well, I think the key here, Ross, is if I'm not mistaken, DJ and the rest of the coaching staff are on their last year of their contract, right? So for me, it would, even if things go off the rails and even if things aren't the way you want, hiring a new head coach doesn't make a lot of sense, because the new general manager is going to want to bring in his own guy. So if you hire a new head coach now, he's basically a lame duck waiting to be chopped by the incoming new GM, because the new GM is going to want his own guy. And that's fair. Like, if you're going to run a team, you're going to want to pick how that team is going to be coached, and you're going to want to pick the person that you think is the right person. So I unless we start seeing it's very blatantly obvious that these players don't want to play for DJ Smith anymore, I don't anticipate we're going to see a coaching firing here. Maybe, Ross, what we could see is maybe some new assistants being brought in just to take away some of DJ's toys, DJ's guys, just to kind of implement new systems around DJ. But as long as the players are still supporting him, I think he's going to remain the bench boss here.
Jeff Merrick from the Jeff Merrick Show and 32 Thoughts podcast had an interesting quote. I would imagine Daniel Alfredsson's position with the Senators will become more clear in the next little while. So, we'll keep that in mind. But who could some replacements be for Pierre Dorion? Who's going to be the next Senators general manager? We'll have that conversation and a full game day preview still to come. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Mary J's. Guys, Mary J's is a locally owned cannabis dispensary in the Ottawa area. It started off with three best friends making a life-changing decision to open a store. They slept in air mattresses on the floor of the sales room just to make ends meet. They were grinding, and through hard work and dedication, they've had success. They now have 4 stores in the Ottawa area and a store in Cobourg. Guys, for everyone in the Ottawa area, their locations are in Riverside South, Orleans, Greeley, and Russell. So lots of different spots. Mary J's offers the best and newest products in the market with many new additions to the menu every single week. Whether you're a rookie or a grizzled vet, they've got whatever you need. Mary J's offers competitive pricing. In fact, they will price match any store in Ottawa. That means you are guaranteed to get the best price around at Mary J's. Mary J's offers the best customer service as well. They're always willing to assist you with all their friendly bud tenders. One of the owners, Dashy, diehard Sens fans, absolute beauty. So go to one of the stores, say what up to Dashy, pick his brain about all the newest products they have to offer, and chat some Sens. Guys, check it out, Mary J's.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Sleeper. Picture this. Tim Stützle scores a hat trick. The Senators win the Stanley Cup. And if you want to win 100 times your money, play daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app. These are all possible scenarios for this season, but you have a chance at winning big. You need to play daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper. Sleeper is the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our top choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. With Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests with studs like Brady Tkachuk, Claude Giroux, Drake Batherson, and Jake Sanderson. All you need to do is more or less pick stats for these stars. Choose stats like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. You heard me, Sens fans. That's 100 times payout on Sleeper. So start paying attention and get your picks right so you can win big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. As for now, only available in the United States. All right, Pilsy. Here we go. Speculation season is here. The Ottawa Senators have an interim GM, and I have been trying to connect the dots, finding who played with Steve Staios, who is in management roles now, who is connected with Michael Andlauer, because if there's one thing I'm nearly sure of, there's going to be a connection somewhere along the line. They want to bring in their own people. Who to you stands out as a top candidate for this position? If you were on Indeed, who would you be looking for?
Yeah, well, hey, Indeed only matches candidates that have job skills that fit the resume. So definitely we're going to have that here. Well, I gotta turn to Elliot Friedman. I know I often reference him, but he is the top insider, and he tossed out a couple names here.
For now, he's the top Sens insider.
Yeah, well, I didn't say Sens insider. We all know who the top Sens insider is. But he threw out Peter Chiarelli. You know, I don't love it. I don't love it. If Chiarelli was to come in an advisory role or something like that, I think I'd be okay with that. And that certainly is a possibility as they're trying to beef up the staff here. And
we were saying that Peter Chiarelli's first job yesterday, we were saying on the live stream, go check it out. We were saying that Peter Chiarelli's first job with the Sens was as a legal assistant. I don't think that Dadonov situation happens under Peter Chiarelli, but maybe.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, that's you want him as an advisor, but I don't think you want him calling all the shots. That's just me personally. And then Elliot Friedman brought up Matthew Darche. I think that would be someone that could be a good candidate. Obviously, he's one.
Who is Matthew Darche? Because I feel like that's a name. It's a hot, sexy name right now on the GM carousel where, you know, it's like you're trying to get your first ticket, whereas Peter Chiarelli's just spinning around the Ferris wheel. He's like, I'm not getting off. I paid my ticket and I'm staying on here. You know, they're always bringing back the same old people, whereas for Matthew Darche, he's like an up-and-coming young GM. So what's his deal?
Yeah, so he's been the director of hockey operations with the Tampa Bay Lightning since 2019, and now his current title is assistant general manager of the Tampa Bay Lightning. So this is a guy that's been in an organization that has had a lot of success when he's there, and kind of, you know, when you're trying to create a best-in-class organization like Andlauer is trying to do in Ottawa, having people that have achieved success, and the Tampa Bay Lightning have been basically a dynasty since Matthew Darche has been there. So that's a good guy to add to the staff. Whether he's going to be, again, I'm not sure what kind of role he's going to be in, but if he was looking at a guy to be a general manager, I think that's someone that could be a good candidate. It's
not the be-all, end-all, but it's definitely not a bad thing that he's French as well, right? You want to be able to, absolutely. And Steve Staios is an Anglophone. I feel like if you get a Francophone in the mix there, also very solid. This, to me, though, it trumps that easily. And this is the quote from Julien Brisebois on Matthew Darche, who has interviews with several teams to be their GM. But this is what Julien Brisebois has to say, who's the general manager in Tampa. Quote, he's got phenomenal personality, really good people skills, really good emotional intelligence, his playing background in the NHL, but also in Europe and the minors, and a player who only established himself in the NHL around the age of 30, shows a lot of resilience, persistence, and dedication to the craft, and a passion for the game. If given a chance to run his own program somewhere, I'm sure he'd do great for the same reason I know he does great in the role I have for him. His leadership skills, his people skills, his expertise in the game of hockey and management in general make him a really strong candidate for leadership positions in any organization, particularly the NHL. The entire article is by Joe Smith on The Athletic. You can go read that. It's from the summer, but everything still stands true. I think I'm on the Matthew Darche train here, Pilsy. I think, you know, a guy who has experience winning. What happened in 2019? The Lightning got swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Matthew Darche comes in, and they win 2 Stanley Cups. So obviously, hey, connect the dots. Is that the only reason? No, but it's certainly a guy who has experience, and he has experience with a team who's been up against the cap for a number of years, and they have to be creative to have enough cap room so that you can call up whoever you want and not be playing a man short in games. Like they put Vasilevsky, I believe, they put someone on LTIR and had the exact, I believe, 2 cents. $2 left to sign Austin Watson to fill out their roster.
Well, and look at what they did, whether you like it or not, with Nikita Kucherov on LTIR with those famous T-shirts, $18 million above the cap for playoffs. Like, I mean, that was all within the rules, and they're not getting fined a first-round draft pick for doing that. Heck, they won a Stanley Cup while doing that. So that's what you like to see. That's what you like to see.
Matthew Darche would be a very solid candidate, but Pilsy, Elliot Friedman snuck in a third name that I think would catch the attention of many Sens fans.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Spezza was that third guy he snuck in there. I don't think Spezza's leaving Dubas's side. He was with him in Toronto, followed him to Pittsburgh, and at this point, I don't see it happening. I'm not against it. Like, Ross, when Spezza retired, immediately, at least I was saying he would be a perfect assistant GM for the Sens, hoping he would come back home. But not only did he not come back home, he went to the Sens' arguably 2 biggest rivals in the Leafs and the Penguins. So that's tough.
We were talking to the guy Matt, though, and Matt has told us before, like, Spezza's he's going to be a GM. This isn't something like, oh, he played in Ottawa, so he might be a GM there. Jason Spezza, within the next 5 years, will be an NHL GM.
Oh, and I think that's his goal. Even while he was playing, Ross, everyone was talking about how this was an obvious career path for him after he retired from playing hockey. So it'll be interesting. I don't think he's going to leave Dubas just yet, but it'll be interesting for sure. Now, before we move on...
Cut the cord, Spaz.
Yeah, honestly, let's go. Before we move on, because there is a game tonight, thank God we have a hockey game to talk about. I'm sick of the off-ice stuff.
Postcast afterwards, Martian and Pilsy will have you covered.
You got it. I do want to wrap up with a positive sandwich for Pierre Dorion here. First, Pierre Dorion, I think, is a great person. Like, we've had him on the show 3 times. very candid with us, willing to give us his time, always gives us good answers. We've even had the opportunity to chat with him off the record at the rink at Sens Dev Camp. He was telling jokes with us. He was telling us kind of behind the scenes stuff. And, you know, like he just had respect for us, and we were able to kind of chat with him with ease. It wasn't like an awkward media executive management relationship. There was none of that. So for that, I want to thank Pierre Dorion. Now, the middle of the sandwich here, there were a lot of times where unprofessionalism was kind of shown. Players have said they didn't always think that Pierre Dorion was kind of the most professional guy. Like, he's a bit of a goofball, and that shows. Nothing wrong with that. But at times, you need to kind of put your business suit on and not mess around or try to make jokes and do things like that. There's a lot of head-scratching trades that didn't work out in his favor, but at the same time, there's trades that worked out in his favor as well. That's the nature of trades. You're going to win some, you're going to lose some, no matter who you are. And then finally, to wrap it up, if there's one thing you're going to give credit to Pierre Dorion for, is he did a damn good job of locking up the core pieces here. Like Tim Stützle locked up, Brady Tkachuk locked up, Jake Sanderson locked up. Joonas Korpisalo, we'll see how that goes, obviously just in the first year here, but a long-term deal there as well. So that's one thing you got to give him credit for, is he got all those key players locked up to good deals. And the next general manager coming in here, hopefully there's no more fines or suspensions happening, but they're going to be set up in a pretty good spot as far as key players, star players go. They're just going to have to plug in the rest of the pieces here. So I just wanted to get that out there about Pierre Dorion as a kind of wrapping up his time here.
No, it's a really good comment. I'd like to have this conversation down the road a little bit, but how many of those pieces have to still be in the organization for Pierre Dorion to get legitimate credit if this team can become a Stanley Cup contender and even potentially get it done? Like, does it have to just be Sanderson and Stützle, or does it have to be, a fourth-round pick like Drake Batherson? Because you're supposed to hit on the big picks. It's not always easy, and just ask the Montreal Canadiens. It's not always easy to hit on top 5 picks, but he absolutely hit all 3 of those out of the ballpark.
But, yeah, you got to hit on them and you got to draft them. But you don't want to be signing 3 guys to over $11 million. That puts you in a lot of trouble. So you got to give him credit for getting a good deal there.
We just knocked down the Leafs and Habs in quick succession. Love to see that.
We do.
With that said, I think there is something poetic about the last thing Pierre Dorion did publicly with the Ottawa Senators was honoring Craig Anderson, who was his mentor, his predecessors, like one of his best moves was Brian Murray bringing in Craig Anderson. And we know how much Brian Murray means to Pierre Dorion. So I think for that to be his last public appearance as Senators general manager, I think there is something kind of, closure with it. It's like, you know what? That's great. And yeah, just echo your sentiment. Nobody can say Pierre Dorion didn't care about the Ottawa Senators. He cares.
Pierre from Orleans cared about the Ottawa Senators.
Damn right. So we'll leave it at that. We've got a game day to get to, a full preview. The team that Tim Stützle should be on, probably the New York Rangers, but otherwise at the draft, the decision was Quinton Byfield or Tim Stützle. Well, where are they at now? Let's have that discussion and preview tonight's game, keys to victory, and will Artem Zub play? We have the answer next. Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network and North America's #1 sportsbook. Also, home of Pilsy's parlay of the day. I'm going to pull up my parlay here. FanDuel is the top spot if you want to get any bets in on football, hockey, basketball, baseball. We're in that sweet spot, Ross, where now all of these sports are happening at the same time. You absolutely love to see it. And the best place to get in on any of the action is FanDuel, especially if you're a new customer. $150 in bonus bets with any $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Now, Pilsy's parlay of the day today is over 6.5 goals. Both of these teams are among the best in goals per game, LA and Ottawa. Tim Stützle, anytime goal scorer. He's played LA 4 times, but no goals yet. I want to see Timmy get on the board there. And Both of these teams love getting off to hot starts, especially the Sens. So both teams to score in the first period. Put all those three together, you get plus 506 odds on FanDuel. So guys, check it out today. It's FanDuel. Use code LOCKEDON. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and get started. Get in on the action. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Shawarma Palace. You know how much we love Shawarma Palace. Every time I'm in Ottawa, I'm at Shawarma Palace. I always love the platter. I always get the chicken platter, but you can get anything you want at Shawarma Palace. Beef, chicken, falafel, or you can go crazy and get the shawarma poutine at Shawarma Palace. But Pilsy loves his sandwiches, keeps them nice and clean. They're stuffed with everything you'd expect. The pickled turnips are delicious. You get the garlic sauce in there. You get the shredded lettuce. Everything is just so perfect, whether it's a sandwich or a platter. It's the only place to go in Ottawa for shawarma since 1997. Started with one store, and now they're up to 7. You can go check out all their locations on their social media. Shawarma Palace, Ottawa, where you can find all the goodness. The only disclaimer I'll give you if you're following them on social media is prepare to get cravings every time they post something new, because it looks delicious, it tastes delicious, and you're supporting local, you're supporting an Ottawa Senators forward community. So get into Shawarma Palace, go eat it today, and go eat like a royal. Go eat at Shawarma Palace.
And the Ottawa Senators are doing a hiring search right now, so they should check out Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in the same place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills. Why would you do that when you can do it all on Indeed? Find top talent fast with Indeed's powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Don't spend time waiting. Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their description the moment they sponsor a job right away. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Indeed does the hard work for you. Sponsor a job, and boom, Instant Match shows you the best candidates. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/LockedOn to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOn. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
All right, Pilsy, here we go. It's a game day. Do you remember how to do these game day previews or what?
I can't, we're talking about the Ottawa Senators ice hockey team, right? We haven't talked about an ice hockey game in what seems like forever. So let's get into it. A game day. I'm fired up, Ross.
A week tomorrow, because the last game was on a Saturday. So we did the preview on Friday. It's been nearly a week. We had to remember who's on the team. And this LA Kings team, they're good. Okay. Like there's no way around that. So I know the first game back after a long layoff, back-to-back road games, not always easy, but the Senators are going up against the LA Kings. The Kings are 5-2-2 on the season, and they're getting production from every single line on their roster. Before we get to who's in their lineup, I also want to touch on, well, a revenge game of sorts. And it could be a revenge game both ways, Pilsy, because the Ottawa Senators are likely going to start Joonas Korpisalo in this game, and the LA Kings are going with Cam Talbot. Cam Talbot had a note before practice yesterday saying that it was tough being injured 3 separate times, including out of training camp when he was with Ottawa. Tough to gel with the new team. He goes on to say that's a great group over there. You meet a lot of guys throughout your career that you're going to be friends with, and that group is no different. So I look back on my time there fondly, but I'm here now, and I'm looking forward to playing them on Thursday. There was nothing consistent about Cam Talbot except for being inconsistent in Ottawa. He had some games where he was the best player on the ice, and he had some games where he's the worst player on the ice. So I don't know what to expect from him this season, but I'm very curious to see how he responds, because he played well enough in Toronto. The Leafs were just, flat out awful in that game, but he's doing his thing, man. He's got some great performances under his belt so far this season. He's got a 4-2-1 record with a .914 save percentage.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're a goalie, LA is a great place to go because this is a team that even their forwards are very defensive minded. Like you look at Kopitar, you look at Philip Deneau, even Pierre-Luc Dubois. Like these are guys that have been touted for their defensive attributes, especially Deneau. Well, obviously, especially Kopitar as well. So if you're a goalie, that's a good place to land. And even their D-core, not a lot of offensive defensemen there, a lot of focus on proper defensive structure. So Cam Talbot is liking his new home in LA so far.
The Los Angeles Kings, who are on the second game of a 4-game road trip after this one, they'll head to Philadelphia and then Vegas on the way back to California. Their lineup is expected to look as follows. Anze Kopitar at center between Quinton Byfield and Adrian Kempe. Pierre-Luc Dubois is between Kevin Fiala and, don't call me Alexis Lafreniere, his name is Alex Laferriere. The third line is Phil Deneau between Trevor Moore and Arthur Kaliev. The fourth line is Blake Lizotte with Carl Grundstrom and Trevor Lewis. On the back end, Mikey Anderson is with Drew Doughty. Vladislav Gavrikov is with Matthew Roy, and Andreas Englund, former Senators second-round pick, who scored his first NHL goal on Monday in Toronto, is playing with Jordan, don't call me Nick Spence. In goal, Cam Talbot expected to start. Phoenix Copley is the backup. We know the LA Kings are very well coached as well. So this is just an LA Kings team that you got to bring your best against every single game, or you're going to get embarrassed. As Todd McClellan is the head coach of this team, 5th year with the Kings.
Yeah, definitely. It's there's a lot of experience here mixed in with some youth when you're looking at guys like Byfield, Kaliev, Blake Lizotte, all those guys. So this is a tough team. There's no way around it. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Senators, after being on a break so far, go up against a defensive-minded team like this.
Who is your lookout player on the LA Kings?
My lookout player on the LA Kings is going to be Quinton Byfield, Ross. Look,
noted winger, Quinton Byfield.
Yes, noted winger. Hand up, I was big on the Byfield train in the 2020 draft. That's the guy I wanted for the Ottawa Senators. We talked about a line where he's centering Brady Tkachuk and anyone else, but just having those two big players as top line guys, I thought was going to work out great. And at the time, Tim Stützle was still not sure, is he going to be a center? Is he going to be a winger? But Quinton Byfield was a guy like everyone's like, with this size, he's going to be a centerman in the NHL quickly. Well, wouldn't you know, he's on the wing and Tim Stützle is a bona fide #1 center now. So that's strange how it's worked out. Now, Quinton Byfield, it's taken more time than I think most people thought for him to adjust to the NHL game, but he's having a nice season, Ross, in 9 games, 2 goals, 4 assists, and is a +5 here. So he's a big frame that's going to be tough to deal with now that he seems more accustomed to the pro game.
And I'm kind of tongue-in-cheek saying, like, oh, on the wing, right? Like, Ottawa's got their big left winger who can get in the corner and muck and grind. But look at the center depth on the LA Kings. Oh. Kopitar, Dubois, and Deneau down the middle. Like that might be the best 1-2-3 punch in the league. There's teams that have a better 1-2, but to add Philip Deneau as that defensively responsible forward who can still produce offense. Trevor Moore's out to a great start this season as well. Like they're getting contributions from damn near everybody on their roster this year. But I'm not gonna try to get too cute with my lookout player. I'm going with Drew Doughty, because the bounce back in his career has been so impressive. It felt like when LA started going down the tubes and started rebuilding, he had those back-to-back seasons with points in the 30s, but the defensive game wasn't as strong as it was when he was getting his Norris Trophy that still should be Erik Karlsson's. But that to say, he's bounced back, had 52 points last year, and is already at 6 points in 9 games this year. Heck, he's got 4 goals on the season as well. So Drew Doughty's my lookout player. Expect him to play 28, 29 minutes today, do his thing, and I liked with the NHL and Drew Doughty's main character of it, because he's entertaining, he's funny, he's always chirping. Like he's the kind of guy where you buy your ticket to go see Drew Doughty play. And I don't know if he'll ever truly get the respect at this point in his career. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I've kind of been in Sens land where everyone's kind of been knocking him down over the years because it's like Karlsson better. But like this guy's a Hall of Famer, right? Like there's no question Drew Doughty's going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I think so. Especially like you throw in, Stanley
gold
Cups, gold medals, Norris Trophy winner, longevity. Like, yeah, it's going to happen.
You know how many games he's played?
I can say 1,100.
Yeah, 1,104.
Oh man, I was close. Whew.
That's impressive, man. So yeah, Drew Doughty's my lookout player here when we're talking about the LA Kings. But I do want to give some stick taps as well to Andreas Englund, because he did not look like an NHL defenseman when he left the Ottawa Senators organization. He went to Colorado, played in the minors a bunch there, a little bit in the NHL, and now, man, he's a heavyweight. Like, he is fighting heavies around the league. And we saw him fight in Belleville. We knew he could throw him, but he's playing an everyday role in the NHL. So credit to him for grinding it out and making an everyday NHLer out of himself. So that's the LA Kings, how they're going to look in tonight's game. And as we go to the Ottawa Senators projected lineups, and of note, Pilsy, I changed it because we got the news. Artem Zub out in tonight's game, not playing, not ready. And hey, as much as we'd love to see Artem Zub back, this is not the type of injury that you want to rush. I want to see him continue to skate. He's been skating 7 out of the last 8 days he's been on the ice. So keep healing up and be back at 100%. So the D-core is a little bit in flux. I put Travis Hamonic back with Jake Sanderson just because I know that there's a relationship there and they've played so much together in the past. And, well, we saw Clevin play with Matt and Palo in the last game. So we expect Matty and Palo to draw in on that third pair. I'll run through the lines here that we expect tonight, Pilsy, and then I want your locked on player to watch. The citizens voted, by the way, for their locked on player. So let's get to ours after the lineup. Tim Stützle with Brady Tkachuk and Claude Giroux. Josh Norris with Drake Batherson and Vladimir Tarasenko. Ridley Gregg between Dominic Kubalik and Mathieu Joseph. And Rourke Chartier with Parker Kelly and Mark Kaslik. On the back end, we're thinking it's going to be Sanderson with Hamonic, Chychrun with JBD, and Clevin with Matty and Palo. All signs pointing to Joonas Korpisalo starting against his old team.
I love it. Back to both goalies having a revenge game of sorts. And look, Korpisalo looked great up against Pittsburgh, so I'm glad he's getting the nod here. Ross, my locked-on player, Tim Stützle. Let's stick with the 2020 draft theme. I had mentioned I was on the Byfield train at the time, but hindsight is 2020. I am glad that that's not how things worked out, and the Ottawa Senators got Tim Superstar Stützle because he's the guy they needed. And I mentioned it in my FanDuel ad read. 4 games up against the LA Kings, 4 assists. Let's see Timmy pop one on them just to have a little victory lap here. So Tim Stützle, my locked on player, rather.
Yeah, 4 assists for Tim Stützle in 4 games against LA. Most notably, people remember that backhand sauce that he put
so nasty
right onto Claude Giroux's tape in overtime last year for the Senators to get the win in Los Angeles. So that's a great pick, Pilsy. And you go back to, I think it was Dominic Bach, a prospect for the St. Louis Blues back then, that was like, pack your bags, you're going to Hollywood, Timmy, right before the draft. We saw that. We told Timmy, we said, hey, how close did you think you were to going to LA? They obviously have German connections. Marco Sturm was an assistant coach working the organization. I believe the LA Kings owner also owns a DEL team, not Mannheim, but a different DEL team. So they would have seen him. They would have scouted him. They decided to go with Quinton Byfield. So Tim Stützle, great locked-on player to have there, Pilsy. I'm going to go with my gut on this one. I'm going to go with Jacob Chychrun, because sometimes it's not about the guy that you have, but the guy that you want. And last year at the trade deadline, the Ottawa Senators ended up getting Jacob Chychrun. And it seems, by all accounts, that it was between Jacob Chychrun and Vladislav Gavrikov. They end up getting Gavrikov. They re-sign him to an extension. Everything worked out just fine for the LA Kings. But Jacob Chychrun has been a monster this season for the Ottawa Senators. 4 goals. That's absolutely sick. And you look at just what he's brought stability-wise with his skating. I know some people are talking about maybe wanting a bit more from him defensively. I think he's been just fine. He's +2 on the season. He's playing almost 23 minutes a night. You can expect that number to climb a little bit here without Thomas Chabot, because in the 2 games so far, obviously Chabot finished the game against the Islanders, but did he really with the injury suffered there? Chychrun played 28-12 in that game, Pilsy, and then 27-14 in the first game without Chabot. So expect Chychrun to carry a lot more weight than he has needed to so far this season. But with 8 points in 8 games, man, if he's providing offense, that's the number one key from the back end without Chabot. So I'll be locked on to Jacob Chychrun tonight. And the citizens have voted on Twitter, where every day, every game day on Locked On Senators, Sens Central, we will be putting out a poll asking which Locked On player are you watching tonight. Pilsy, this is the closest one so far, though. Brady Tkachuk gets the win at 35%. 30% say Jake Sanderson, 17.6% say Drake Batherson, and 17% say Jacob Chychrun. What are you hoping to see from the captain tonight?
I mean, now that Lemieux isn't here to distract him and bite him, I should say, he should have a good game. And it's changing live as we watch. I always love to see that. But I just want to see Brady Tkachuk do what he does best. And you mentioned it, up against Quinton Byfield. That's going to be an interesting matchup. And I just want to see him play a physical game. They've seen Cam Talbot. They've got inside read on him, get lots of shots on net, and just lead this team. That it's been a while since they've had a game, so I need him to pull everyone into the battle with him.
The keys to victory tonight for the Ottawa Senators: start on time and apply early pressure. There's been a ton of goals for the Ottawa Senators and the LA Kings in the first period. The Kings are second in goals scored in the first period. Sorry, third with 12. They've scored 12 goals in the first period, but they've also given up 12 goals in the first period. So in 9 first periods, there's been 24 total goals in LA Kings games. So that's chaotic. If you're Ottawa, try to make sure they're on the wrong end of it. So I've got to apply early pressure as their number one key to victory tonight against LA.
And Ross, that's why it was part of my parlay. Both teams to score in the first period. The Sens have been scoring first. They've been scoring in the first period as well. So definitely take a look at that on FanDuel. Now, second, best players need to lead the way. We've already talked a lot about how good defensively this team is. So the only guys the fourth line guys probably aren't going to be able to do much here, but the stars, like all of our locked on players, Brady, Timmy, Jacob Chychrun, they got to dominate. They got to break through those defensive structures, and they got to find a way to be successful here.
The Ottawa Senators power play has scored goals in 5 straight games. Scored a goal in 5 straight games. And I have to be clear, because I want to see it be a little crispier. Like they've literally got 1 power play goal in each of the last 5 games. Wouldn't it be nice to get 2 or 3? Like they got 3 against Philly, and they easily won that game. So for me, it's like, hey, it's about how you look on the power play too. And it's just been discombobulated a little bit. So now that, the roster hasn't changed, and I mean, Chabot, yeah, he comes out, but you've gotten reps with Josh Norris here. Like, I want to see them score 2 or 3 on the power play tonight. I think it's possible. The LA Kings penalty kill's middle of the pack right now. They've got the pieces to have a great penalty kill, but if I'm Ottawa right now, I really need to see that power play lead the way. And let's build off of not allowing a power play goal in the last game against Pittsburgh, because they had allowed a power play goal in 3 straight games before that, including the 3 they allowed in Detroit. So win the special teams battle, but in particular, be crispy on the power play. The Senators come into this game 4 wins, 4 losses through 8 games on the season, whereas the LA Kings, they've taken another step in the right direction. They're 5-2-2 in 9 games, 3rd in the Pacific Division. Pilsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Well, I'm just so glad we have a hockey game to talk about here, Ross. It's been too long. It's been too long for the Ottawa Senators, so I really want them to get off to a hot start so that we can put all this off-ice stuff behind us. Final thoughts for me. You gave a birthday shout-out yesterday. Again, happy birthday to your mom, so I will do the same. Happy birthday to my amazing girlfriend, Simone. Shout-out, Simone. Happy birthday.
Oh, yeah, that's worthy of a round of applause. But no, that's great. Happy birthday, Simone. It's birthday week on the show.
Yeah, big time.
Rachel's birthday isn't until March, but remind me on the 24th that the next day I'll give a little hat tip there as well. So, yeah, great day to do a postcast as well. I'm sure Simone will be celebrating with the postcast as well. So you can tune into that after tonight's Ottawa Senators game. Tonight's game, we got a 7 or 7:30 start here tonight.
7.
7 o'clock start from the Canadian Tire Center in downtown Canada. Ontario. The Senators are minus 110 here, according to NHL.com. So strange they put the odds on NHL.com, but that's neither here.
They were even on FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.
Get the best number available. Go to FanDuel if you want to throw a couple on the game tonight. My final thoughts is it really is a new era. It's a trickle down. Like they made the move at the very top with the owner. Then they made the move with Cyril Leader to lead the business side. They made the move with Steve Staios to lead the hockey side. And then we're just starting to see change come all the way down. Best in class is around the corner. But tonight, let's focus on getting one single win. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the game. We'll talk to you afterwards. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.